I'm going to go ahead and start off this video just by mentioning that I've lost all of the audio files for the external microphones we're using during this video. Unfortunately, the audio for this one clip in particular was completely unusable, and therefore I'm going to have to be doing a voiceover. So if you see my lip movements not matching what I'm saying, that's why. That said, the audio in this video is going to be a little bit subpar, but it's not something that most of you will notice. It's just going to bother me inside. This is a new series that we're going to be starting called Simply DIY, where you simply do it yourself. And in this video of this series, we're going to be replacing an exhaust fan from the bathroom with one that is much quieter and much more energy efficient. And we're going to be drilling into the roof and doing other fun things. And what better time to mention a little simple legal disclaimer that I'm not a professional and I am not encouraging you to do things that I'm doing or the way that I'm doing them. In most cases they'll probably turn out fine, but they may not exactly be the best or proper ways to do them. This video is for entertainment purposes only. At the same time though, hopefully it's helpful to you if you're trying to do something similar to this. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and remove the decorative portion of the old fan. And all it really does is just hide this nasty bit up here. The second thing we're going to do while we're here is they included some bits that basically make it so that you can easily connect your DC wires together. So currently we have ours just crimped on. It does look like we're splitting off and sharing the wire, which might be an issue with fitting them in here. So we might not be able to use the connectors that this came with, but we do have some extras that I will pull out if we need to. So the next thing I'm going to do, instead of turning off all of the DC electronics, I happen to note this 15 amp fuse right here is the one that actually is for the bathroom fan. So in order to make that safe to work with, I'm going to go ahead and pull this out. And we are now safe to work on the fan. So as you can see, it's dark in here now. If I try to turn the fan on, it doesn't work. So now that that is completely turned off, I'm going to go ahead and work on disconnecting these wires. Since these are crimped at the top, I'm just going to go ahead and snip them. And just for note, we're going to be using these twist-on nuts to replace these. Just because there are multiple wires, I think it'll be easier just to put on a twist-on nut. And that's similar to what was there before, which is just a crimp kind of nut. So now this is disconnected. There's nothing that's holding it in from the inside here. So now we have to go up to the roof to get rid of this one and then put the new one on. Alright, so before we go up on the roof, probably going to be easier to put our 𝚘𝚗𝚝𝚑 butyl tape on this first. So basically what this is going to do is it's going to make a rubber seal around the bottom of this. And if you don't have this tape or you don't want to get this tape, you could always just cover this in actual 𝚘𝚗𝚝. But I always find this easier to work with whenever you're trying to put it in specific places, like on the bottom of this. Alright, so when we're finished, it's basically going to look like this. This is actually going to be placed down on the roof. So essentially what this does is there's going to be a huge hole in the roof, and this is going to make it so that water doesn't come in. And then one last item of prep that I'm going to do before I actually go on the roof, we need to go ahead and get this open so that way it's ready for us. There's two levels of opening this up. First you have to pop the top off, and then inside there's actually a metal, I guess, little tab in there that you have to get to somehow. Typically people use long screws or something skinny to get in there. I'm gonna have to improvise real quick and figure out how I'm gonna do it. What better thing to use than a temperature probe? Alright, so I've got my die core ready to come out. And this thing just slides into one of these caulking guns. And then it's ready to go. I'd say probably the worst part about this process is getting up there with all the stuff that you need. This is Megan's first time climbing the ladder. And we're using the finest of safety precautions, including wearing sandals, both of us. Now we're going to do a pro camera handoff. Hopefully if you're following along at home, you've watched this once through, because I don't think I've told you everything that I'm using. And this is something new, because I forgot that I put these lids on. So these lids are connected on with nuts, and these nuts have to be loosened with a wrench. I've had a long day at work. I'm trying to get this filmed before it gets too dark. We're doing it for you. You at home. So what we're gonna have to do now is there's all this die core here. It's just stuck there from the last installation. This all has to be pried up basically without damaging the roof. Which is the fun part. And once you start to get some screws exposed here, we should be able to start taking them out, which will make this a little bit easier as well. There's another one here. Yep.
How many screws are there?
A ton. Yeah, I think I'm just going to take these screws out first. If I can find them all. You can kind of see an indentation where they're at, for the most part. But this part right here is so thick, you can't actually see them. What do you think the odds are that we're going to get done before the sun fully sets?
0.
This is probably going to take a minute, so we're going to save disk space and battery just in case this thing is anywhere close to dying. And we'll come back after I remove the die core and the screws. It's just the same process I was doing here, and it's a pain in the butt. See you soon. So we're nearing completion. I'll show you a couple things in a second, but if you look at this corner here, you can see that we're already lifting it up, which is the main goal. I think I have all the screws out. It's just a matter of getting it pulled up. So that's what we're going to be doing right now. So I want to point something out right now. You see that bit of roof right there that's moving around?
Yes.
So that's the roof material that you don't want to be stretching out. That's essentially what keeps your the inside of your roof dry. So we're going to want to be careful whenever we're pulling this out to not stretch that. And you can see that what's keeping it attached here is this section right here. So what we can do is we can take our material pusher thing here and just rip it away. Whenever you are using something flat and like this to move the stuff out of the way, you'll want to try to stick up towards where you know this metal is, so that way you're not prying at the roof. This is simply DIY because it is rather simple, but you do have to make sure that you're being cautious. Move. So the main thing I'm concerned about is that we get this part here flat down on here. And I think as it currently stands, we will be mostly
pretty close.
Fine.
Yeah.
Alright, so we'll do a little bit more cleanup over here, I noticed. And you can kind of see this is already stretching the roof out. But
what do you mean by stretching the roof out? What does that mean?
you see this stuff right here?
Yes.
That's the roof. That's the rubber membrane of the roof. By stretching this, you're stretching that rubber membrane.
Got
which
it.
you don't want to do.
Because it could potentially rip it?
Right.
Or, okay, cool.
Yes, you don't want to rip your roof.
Yeah, that sounds like a bad day.
So this part's going to vary depending on what vent you're putting on. But I think most of them are typically going to have these metal pieces. These metal pieces, basically you need to make sure are facing the sides of your RV. That's because whenever we put the actual vent on this, they're going to be screwing into that. So I'm looking at the four corners. I'm seeing that we're mostly clear of the existing core. My core beetle tape is down, so that's going to make a nice waterproof layer there on top of the waterproofing we're going to be doing here. And then you'll also notice this black rubber here. That's a seal that the vent will actually go down into, so that way that's watertight as well. So now that we have this in, we're going to start screwing it in. They provide you all the screws. In fact, I would not recommend using the existing screws. Just use the ones they give you. The screw locations should be pretty close to where the originals were, but you're probably just going to end up making new holes, and that's fine. If you are using an impact driver like me, you want to make sure to not put too much torque on this because there is wood underneath this. You don't want to strip the wood. You want to make sure that the screws that you're putting in are tight enough to be secure, but again, you don't want to strip the wood. If you're using a traditional drill, you'll want to set it to, I'd say probably around 8 or 10. That's just my unprofessional opinion. But basically, again, you just want to make sure you're not stripping the wood. My drill's starting to die.
What?
The battery in my drill's starting to die.
No!
I think I'm gonna have to go get another battery. Alright, well,
pause.
I'll be right back. Alright, so now we have a fresh battery and our professional lighting, so that way we can adequately light the roof as we're filming. Isn't that nice? So now that we have all that done, we brought this up with us for a reason. The first thing I'm going to do is just get this on top of the screws. That's our main purpose for it. It's going to make sure that there's no water getting in those screw holes. We're just going to repeat this process for all the screws, including the ones back here. And just something of note when it comes to core, There's two kinds. There's self-leveling, which is what we have here, and then there's the non-self-leveling kind. For roof applications like this, you want self-leveling because you want it to level itself, obviously. But you can also use die-core for like wall applications on the outside of your roof. And for those, you want the non-self-leveling kind, so that way it doesn't drip down the side of your roof. So, we've gotten those screws taken care of. The next thing we want to take care of is these gaps in the old die-core. We want to make sure those cracks are basically filled in all the way around. And again, this is self-leveling, so, you know, go wild. Besides just keeping in mind how much you have. If you don't have an extra one, I do, but if you don't have an extra one, you probably want to be careful to make sure that you don't overdo it in one area and then run out for the next. Alright, so that leaves us with 4 screws left before we can go inside. I mean, we'll have to clean up first. But these 4 screws go into these metal brackets here. So what I'm going to need is for Megan for you to hand me that pan right there. And we're going to need to screw those screws into this area here, which means that we're going to have to open this up so we can access those screws. So now we can see those screws very well. In terms of how you want to install this, the aerodynamic side, which is this side, is all facing towards the front. That's because as air comes up while you're driving down the road, you want it to just go over it. So that means the way we're going to install it is like this. And I'm going to make sure that we can see our screw holes. Almost. I think we need to, might be able to get it in just by moving it with the screw. Looks like this is going to be a pretty tight fit. I don't want to put too much pressure on it. Some pressure. I think I'm going to start with this back one. Better off getting that one in. Alright, so we're basically done up here. I just need to rip off this plastic for a job well done. Ooh. And ta-da! Alright, so while I was recharging the camera, which is dead, I went ahead and stripped these wires. In terms of DC electronics, typically whenever you're looking at wires, the side with the stripe on it is going to be your positive, and the side with nothing on it is going to be your negative. Sometimes it can be reversed if people don't know what they're doing, but I did check these with the multimeter by turning the fuse back on. Stupid bags. And that's correct. So these are the positive, these are the negative, and I don't know if we just forgot about it or what, but we're going to use the temperature probe again to get out our wiring that is otherwise just chilling up here. Yay, here we go. Alright, so for this, we have our black labeled as positive and our white labeled as nothing. So we're going to wire our black up to the green and white, and the white up to the white. Since these are not stripped all the way, at least as far as I want, I'm going to go ahead and strip them a little bit further. So those look long enough now. There is a lot of extra wire to this. It's not a big deal. In fact, I'm probably just going to leave it so we have some extra wire to deal with if we ever need it. So we're just going to shove that up with the, basically in this hidden area, and it'll be A-okay. So since these are wire nuts, I'm just going to go ahead and get these started. Twist them together. And then these wire nuts lock by just twisting. So once you get them twisted enough, those wires aren't going anywhere. And if you want to add an extra step, you could actually just put some liquid electrical tape in here or something. But this is low voltage, and I feel pretty confident that's not going anywhere. Do the same thing with the negative. Push it in, you twist it, and you'll eventually get to the point where she won't twist no more. Then you can give the wires a pull, and you know that's pretty secure. Alright, so I thought it would need to be cut, but this is the new one here, and it actually fits perfectly. So you can look up there, Megan. You can see there's no gaps or anything. Even around the ceiling there's no gaps. So I'm just going to go ahead and screw it in place.
Nice. Looks good. I'm kind of glad you ended up putting that one in because our other one was a little bit discolored.
Alright, well here it is, the final product. It actually wasn't too bad to get installed, and the caulking is actually looking pretty nice aside from just having some junk on it from stuff falling. And in general, I think even with a little bit of experience, this is an easy project for you to accomplish. So if this is something you want to give a shot, I do have a link to this product in the description, and it's opening unexpectedly. And I think this is probably the best fan that you can get right now, given the fact that RV technology is not advancing as much as the rest of the world. But that's it for now. I'll catch you next time.